are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final,
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Wednesday, May 1st. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link, that is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show. Makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So, saw an article yesterday about the possibilities for the Chiefs when it comes to who they will play to start the season. So, I'll get into that in the first segment here. What team should they open up against? And there's a few teams that could definitely be viable candidates for that. So we'll get into that at the start of the show here. Then in the second part of the show, we will talk about the power rankings that NFL.com came out with post the NFL draft. So I'll get into that, give you my thoughts on it, where teams are lined up currently in that. And that'll be the second part of the show. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about a few things regarding the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll talk about them picking up the fifth-year options of quarterback Trevor Lawrence and running back Travis Etienne. We'll talk about their draft, as well as them releasing Zay Jones. And that definitely comes off of them drafting Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round, the LSU wide receiver. So they let him go. We'll get into all that in the third part of the show. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about the top remaining free agents. With the draft being over, we'll get into that. Michael Gallup was one of those top free agents, and he got signed by the Raiders. So we'll get into the remaining free agents and where they could potentially end up. So that's the rundown for the show for today. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about who should play the Chiefs in the season opener. So I actually do have a graphic. We're going to use a graphic for this segment here. So get excited. And right here I have the opponents when the Chiefs are at home. So you got the Broncos, the Bengals, the Chargers, the Texans, the Raiders, the Saints, the Ravens, and the Buccaneers are kind of cut off. But those are their home opponents for 2024. And I think there's at least three or four that stick out and are most likely going to be selected. I think it's going to come down to either the Ravens, the Bengals, or the Texans. And then I think the Chargers are like that fourth team. I think if the Chargers still had, I don't think it really makes a difference, but their offense is going to be changing because they let a lot of guys go. But you still have Justin Herbert and you got Jim Harbaugh there. So that there's still there still is appeal with picking the Chargers as the first opponent. But I think it's going to come down to the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Texans. Those are going to be the three. And because with the Raiders, although the Christmas matchup was good just because, the Raiders did beat them. And maybe the Chiefs want to get some revenge. But they're going to want to get revenge later in the season. The Broncos, and we'll see with Gardner Minshew being the starting quarterback, it's either going to be him or Aiden O'Connell. And then with the Broncos, their quarterback situation, they drafted Bo Nix, but I don't know, is he going to be starting day one? I don't think so, but we'll see. And then you have the Saints and the Buccaneers. they're probably not going to be chosen either. So it's going to come down to, like I said, the 3 teams that I just said. Now, which one is the most appealing? Because with the Ravens, that would be the AFC Championship game rematch from last year. So that's a great candidate. Then you got the Bengals, a team that they've played a lot the last few seasons, really. Last year they played him without Joe Burrow, but they played him in back-to-back AFC Championship games. And they usually give us a good game. It's usually a one-score game. And, well, not even just one score, but 3 points, really. So, could be the Bengals. And then you got the Texans. The Texans, with the offseason moves that they've made, they're on the come-up. They're going to be one of the top teams in the AFC. You got C.J. Stroud in year 2, and especially with them going out and trading for Stephon Diggs, there's a lot of appeal there as well. Now, personally, for me, what opponent would be the best? I think you got to go with the Bengals. I think that's what I would do to open up the season. I mean, the storyline's going in, Burrow coming back from the wrist injury. And we'll see what ends up happening with T. Higgins. Because, I mean, he wants to stay in Cincinnati. Bengals got to work out a long-term deal with them. Bengals did draft a wide receiver in their draft, which could end up being the replacement for T. Higgins. But I think that would be a great way to start off the year. I mean, either way, if they pick the Texans, they pick the Ravens, I mean, I think that's great. You get, the reigning MVP in Lamar Jackson, or if you pick the Texans. Although I would like to see the Chiefs and the Texans match up later in the season, just so the Texans can kind of gel, and then we see them play later in the year. But either way, I'd be excited for the matchup. So that's, I mean, it's really not that hard to kind of figure out who it's going to end up being. It's going to be one of those 3 teams. Now, I'd be surprised if they end up picking the Raiders or the Broncos. Now, again, the divisional opponents, same thing with the Chargers, too. I mean, I think they would take the Chargers over the Broncos and the Raiders because of, the matchups that Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes have had over the years. Those games are usually close. But it's going to be different now because the Chargers, their offense is going to be different. No Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams, no Austin Eckler. You got the Ravens backfield with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. A young receiving core. But, again, I that would be an appealing matchup as well. But, like I said, I think it's going to come down to the 3 teams that I said. The Ravens, the Texans, and the Bengals. Now, they could throw a curveball at us and say, hey, you know what? We want to open up against the Buccaneers because they beat us in the Super Bowl back in 2020, so we want to show them us raising, the banner on opening night, even though there's no more Tom Brady. Now, if Tom Brady was still playing, that would also be an appealing matchup. Very appealing. And you guys know, I like Baker Mayfield a lot, and Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes have had some good matchups over the years. And you go back to college, they had a great matchup there. But it's not going to be the Buccaneers. I mean, hey, the Saints with Derek Carr, yeah. He's going to be playing at Arrowhead regardless, but it's not going to be the Saints. But it gets you excited when you see things coming out like, oh, who is this team going to be playing? Who are the Chiefs going to be playing in the season opener? We're getting close to the release of the schedule. That's coming out very soon. I want to say it's next week or the week after. I don't know the exact date, but it's in May. Now they don't tell us the schedule release date until we get very close to it. You just know it's in May every year. It's like the first, second week of May, whatever it is. But it's exciting. But that's the next thing that we're looking forward to now is when the schedule comes out. Because now the draft's over. Free agency has cooled off. Although we'll talk about some of the remaining free agents later in the show. But this is kind of like that last thing to look forward to. Before, of course, we got the season, but this is the last thing before we start getting to looking towards next season. Really getting looking towards it. Because now we're getting into the summer soon. We got this whole month, and then we get into June, and the summer's going to fly by, which, again, I don't want it to, but that's what happens. So, the schedule, whenever that is released, we're going to cover that. We'll go through the opponents for teams, matchups, things like that. Because we have who everybody's playing. We just don't know where everybody's playing and when everybody's playing. So, I mean, there's a couple things we know. At least we know who's going to be playing the night after the opener, and that's the Packers and the Eagles. They'll be playing each other week 1 in Brazil. We know that we're going to have the triple header on Thanksgiving, the double header on Christmas. We know all that. We just got to find out who's playing what. Well, we know the Lions and the Cowboys are playing on Thanksgiving. We know that. But we got to see who they're playing. So it's an exciting time. We're getting close. Well, still not really, but we're getting closer. That's what I meant to say. But like I said, the schedule release, that's like the last major piece before we start getting into the regular season. I mean, yeah, we got the whole summer, you got the preseason, but that's where we're at right now. So, but back to the original thing. I think now, I would say the Bengals. What do I think? I mean, I could see that. I could see it being the Ravens. I feel like the Texans are probably third. I would say the Ravens and the Bengals are probably the top 2 teams that they're deciding on. And then the Texans are third. But they could look at it and say, wow, the Texans have made a lot of moves this offseason. You got Stephon Diggs, C.J. Stroud, year 2. Maybe that's the team they decide to pick. Could be. Regardless, those are the top 3 right there. And if they went with the Chargers, I'd be okay with that too. Because again, Herbert and Mahomes have had great matchups over the years. But I feel like it's going to come down to either the Ravens or the Bengals. I said the Bengals, but maybe they say, let's have the AFC Championship game rematch, week 1. It's possible. But let me know what you guys think. Who should play the Chiefs in the season opener? I think it's going to come down to the teams I just said. Top 3, Ravens, Bengals, and Texans. Those 3. Maybe the Chargers are 4th, and then you got the other teams. No disrespect, but yeah, it's the NFL is going to want to have a big matchup. They want it to be one that fans are going to be just rushing home from work on that Thursday to watch. Even though it's not on until 8. But I'm just saying. And I don't think Broncos Chiefs is going to be that. If that was the case, but it's not going to be. It's going to come down to those 3 teams. The Ravens, the Texans, and the Bengals. Now, If something ends up happening where that's not the case, all right, then I was wrong. But that's what I think. It's going to come down to the Ravens and the Bengals, I would imagine. But the Texans, maybe they go with them because they made a lot of moves. They made a lot of moves this offseason. But either way, one of those three teams, it'll be a good matchup. So looking forward to it. And we still got some time to go, but like I said, we're getting closer. Little by little, we're getting closer. So we're going to take our first break of the show now, and when we come back, we will discuss the power rankings that were released after the 2024 draft. I'll talk about that, where teams are located within the power rankings, and give my opinion on it. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about the power rankings that were released by NFL.com. I will give you my thoughts on them, so let's go right through it. So at 32, they have the Carolina Panthers. Now, I do like what the Panthers did this offseason. They signed a couple of offensive linemen. In the draft, they drafted a receiver. They drafted a running back. The running back class was not deep this year. They did take Jonathan Brooks. They also did take another tight end. So that with the combination of adding offensive linemen this offseason, as well as trading for Deontay Johnson, they're trying to put Bryce Young in a position to be successful. Now, how is that going to pan out? We'll have to wait and see. But they have at least made an effort to try to surround Bryce Young with more talent and put him in a better situation than he was last year. And I hope that ends up being the case because, first of all, the Panthers put a lot of investment in him, trading up to get him. And, seems like a good kid. And it's weird saying that. But, yeah, it seems like, the Panthers like him. They want him to be successful. And he had a rough first season. So hopefully with the Panthers now surrounding him with more talent, he'll have a better year. And, he could put the rough rookie season behind him. And I think he really wants to. So then we go to 31. We got the Patriots. I'm not really surprised by that. I mean, the Patriots, they still got a lot of work to do. I mean, this is kind of a rebuilding year. Jacoby Brissett they brought in. You draft Drake May. They did take a receiver in the draft to add another playmaker, but this team is still far away from being a contender. And right now, 2024 is going to be kind of that rebuilding year, and you got a new head coach in Gerard Mayo. So, again, they got their franchise guy in Drake May, but we'll see how they handle that. Is he going to start right away? Is he going to sit behind Jacoby Brissett? I feel like that'll be the more likely thing, is he sits behind Jacoby Brissett, but that's just me. And again, you took him at number 3. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But Patriots are at 31. Got the Titans at 30. I feel like that might be a little bit too low for them. I like what they've done. I mean, I did like what they did this offseason. They did take a tackle in the draft. I mean, they did lose Derrick Henry. You brought in Tony Pollard. You brought in Calvin Ridley. They did trade for L'Jarius Sneed to help out the defense, particularly in the secondary. This is going to be a big year for Will Levis. And the Titans are trying to surround him with talent to be successful. Drafting offensive linemen. You can't go wrong with that unless you don't nail the pick. But they're trying to put him in a good situation, and he's got to take a big leap in year 2 if the Titans are going to want to be competitive. They're going to be in a very competitive division because you got the Jaguars, you got the Colts, you got the Texans. Those teams are better than you. Most people are going to say that. I mean, you're definitely going to say the Texans are. But right now, most people probably rank the Titans last. And if they're going to want to prove the doubters wrong, Will Levis is really going to have to step up in year 2. Now, it's going to be a new system that he's going to be learning. So we'll see how he adapts to that. But he's going to have to make a big leap if the Titans are going to want to be competitive this year. So then you got the Commanders at 29. They drafted their franchise guy in Jaden Daniels. Now, will he start? Because the Commanders, another team that brought in a veteran quarterback in Marcus Mariota. Could he start first and then you transition into Jaden Daniels? We'll have to wait and see. But they also did take Johnny Newton for the defensive line. Because you had some guys that, you know, they had to let go. They traded Montez Sweat. They traded Chase Young. So, yeah, Johnny Newton, but JioSaavn Newton from Illinois, who actually went, I think he went in the second round. Yeah, he was the 4th pick in the second round. A lot of people were saying, you know, he's going to be in the first round. But that was, I mean, that was a good pick for the Commanders. But we'll see how they end up being in 2024. The Broncos, I feel like the Broncos should be lower. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, because they could be looking to possibly trade Courtland Sutton. They already traded Jerry Jeudy. Sutton might be, I think, is unhappy in Denver, so he might want to go elsewhere. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But yeah, I think the Broncos should be lower. But again, that's just me. Again, Bo Nix, I don't know if he's going to be starting right away. But they got the Broncos at 28. The Giants are at 27. Yeah, I really can't make an argument for it other than, well, actually, I mean, I think the defense is going to be good. But the problem is the quarterback position. Who's going to be playing quarterback to start the year? Is it going to be Daniel Jones? Is it going to be Drew Lock? Is it going to be Tommy DeVito? They didn't take a quarterback in this draft. So what's going to happen? I like the Malik Neighbors pick a lot because, again, receiver is something they needed. They needed a number 1 wide receiver, and they got that. They're starting to, they are building something. Like I said, getting Brian Burns from the Panthers to go along with Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence, you got to like that. Bobby Okereke was a good signing last year. Deonte Banks, solid corner. They drafted another corner in this draft. They got arguably the best safety in the draft from what I was hearing about. So that's encouraging to replace Xavier McKinney. But again, it's the offense. The offense is going to hold them back, and that's why they're ranked at 27. Cardinals at 26. Again, another team that's got more work to do. They drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., so Kyler Murray gets his number 1 wide receiver. I expect the Cardinals to win more games in 2024, but, they're in the NFC West. I don't expect them to contend for that. But, healthier Kyler, I expect them to win a few more games, but I don't know how good they're going to be. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but I expect them to be more competitive in 2024. The Saints at 25 took an offensive lineman, a corner. They were the team that drafted Spencer Rattler later in the draft. But I expect them to be competitive in the NFC South. But they're at 25 currently. The Seahawks are at 24. I feel like that might be low for them. I'm curious to see how that quarterback battle plays out, if that ends up being the case between Sam Howell and Geno Smith. But you like their roster. They got a new head coach, but they might be a little bit low. 23, you got the Raiders. They took Brock Bowers, best player available, with their first selection. They're going to go into the season with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell as the quarterbacks. So I expect the Raiders to be a competitive team. And you like what they did on defense, also getting Christian Wilkins from the Dolphins, because the Dolphins had to release him. So you got to like that. And Minshew almost brought the Colts to the playoffs. So I think that could be the case with the Raiders. And we'll see how a full year of Antonio Pierce plays out. Now, I'm not saying the Raiders are going to win like 11 games, but, they could win 9 games and maybe get in. But the AFC is very competitive. So 22 is the Colts. Look, I want to see how a full year of Anthony Richardson goes. Because, look, the Colts just missed out on the playoffs. Now you got Anthony Richardson coming back. They did take a receiver. They took a Laiatu Latu, pass rusher. I mean, I think the Colts are going to be a good team, and I'm hoping that Anthony Richardson is healthy. That's going to be another team fighting for a playoff spot. Then the Jets are at 21. I feel like the Jets could be a little bit higher, because you got the Falcons and the Buccaneers above them. But again, you got to see how Aaron Rodgers is. If he's not good, then yeah, they're going to be ranked lower. But they drafted a tackle. They drafted a receiver. You still got that defense. They signed Mike Williams. You got Breece Hall. You got Garrett Wilson. The offensive line has improved. If Aaron Rodgers is healthy, I think this team should be a little bit higher. Then you got the Falcons and the Buccaneers. I'd probably rank the Falcons slightly ahead of the Buccaneers. Again, I'm going to probably be biased and take the Buccaneers to win the division, but I'd probably rank the Falcons ahead. But that's just me. Then the Vikings are ahead of them at 18. Well, I'd probably rank the Vikings lower because, again, I like their roster a lot, but they're going to have a rookie quarterback possibly, or Sam Darnold starting. So I'd probably rank them lower. Again, like their roster a lot, their playmakers, their defense, but similar to the Giants, the quarterback position could be a bit of an issue. But, J.J. McCarthy's a rookie. And I'm expecting him to sit behind Sam Darnold for a little bit, and then they go to him. But we'll have to see. So then the Rams are at 17. Maybe put them a little bit higher. The Chargers are actually at 15. The Bears are at 16. I maybe rank the Chargers a little bit lower. Maybe move the Rams up. Rams did drafts. They did go heavy on the defensive side in the draft, which I thought was smart, especially because they're going to have to replace Aaron Donald. The Bears, again, rookie quarterback with Caleb Williams. That's why they're not ranked higher, in my opinion. But Caleb Williams is that guy from day one. This offense is going to be really special. But yeah, Bears at 16, Chargers at 15. Like I said, maybe you could be a little bit lower. Or Jaguars, I don't know. Maybe they could be lower as well. They're at 14. Drafted Brian Thomas Jr. with their first pick, and that's why we'll talk about the Jaguars in the next segment. But yeah, they let go of Zay Jones, so they're at 14. Steelers at 13. Team that I like their draft. Drafting some offensive linemen, getting Russell Wilson a weapon in Roman Wilson. Also drafting a linebacker as well. So, look, what's unfortunate for them is they play in the AFC North. And that's the same thing with the Browns, who are at 12. But those teams are going to be good. Steelers and Browns, they're going to be fighting for playoff spots. Then we go to 11. You got the Dolphins. Very explosive offense. Did lose some guys on the defensive side of the ball, but I still think they'll be a good team. And it's going to be between them. It's going to be a 3-team race between the Bills, the Jets, and the Dolphins, you would imagine, for that AFC East. In the top 10, you got the Cowboys. Yeah, Cowboys are a top 10 team, even with the lack of moves they made this offseason. But I would put them in the top 10. Got the Bengals at 9. Healthy Joe Burrow coming back. Yeah, this team is going to be up there as one of the best teams in the AFC. Packers are at 8. That might be a little bit low. I'd put the Packers higher than the Bills, and then them and the Texans are going to kind of be battling it out. But they're at 8. Bills at 7. I feel like the Bills should be lower. Now, I think the Bills are still going to be a good team, but losing Diggs and some of the guys they lost this offseason, I think I'd rank them a little bit lower. Because there's other teams I like better than them. Texans are at 6. I mean, again, what can we say about them? They are going to be one of the best teams in the AFC this upcoming year. And then the top 5 is the Eagles, the Lions, the Ravens, the 49ers, and then the Chiefs. I mean, I don't really have any complaints there. Especially the top. The Eagles, maybe, you could maybe move the Eagles out of the top 5. But, I mean, the Eagles, they drafted corners in this draft. They addressed a lot this offseason between free agency and the draft. So, I think their defense is going to be better. You got Vic Fangio now. The offensive side of the ball, you added Saquon Barkley. I mean, the Eagles should be back to being a very good team. And that collapse is going to be a thing of the past. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any problems with the rest of the teams. Got the Lions, Ravens, 49ers, Chiefs at number 1. I have no complaints there. No complaints there. So, I mean, there's nothing really that I have, strong feelings on. I mean, there are some teams, like the Bills, I said maybe could be a little bit lower in the top 10. I'd put the Packers over them. I'd put the Bengals over them. But, again, that's just me. So, but let me know what you guys think about the power rankings. Look at the top 5, like I said. Eagles, Lions, Ravens, 49ers, Chiefs. That's your top 5 right there. So, Chiefs are at 1. No surprise there. So, before we go into our next break, just want to remind you guys again. Got to remove the graphic here. But yeah, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we're going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, a few things that they've done. I'll talk about their draft as well. We'll talk about things regarding Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, and Zay Jones, even though I kind of already talked about them. But yeah, that is what we will do when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. A few things I wanted to touch upon with them. We'll talk about them exercising the fifth-year options of both quarterback Trevor Lawrence and running back Travis Etienne. We'll get into their draft. We'll talk about what they did. And they also did release wide receivers Zay Jones, so I wanted to touch upon that. So let's get into Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, who also played in college together. They've exercised the fifth-year options for both of these players, both 2021 first-round picks, and former Clemson teammates. Trevor Lawrence completed 65.6% of his passes, over 4,000 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions, which is a little high in 2023. But he dealt with several injuries towards the end of the season. A knee injury in Week 6. Well, that's not towards the end of the season. But the ankle injury in Week 13, a concussion in Week 15, and a shoulder in Week 16. So, yeah, that's a lot of injuries. And he did end up missing a game that they did win. It was against the Panthers. But, he played against the Browns, a game that he probably shouldn't have played in. And he threw 3 picks in that game. And it was a mess towards the end of the year. They went 1-5 in their last 6 games, and they missed the playoffs. And yeah, it was an unfortunate end to their season. And you think if Trevor Lawrence doesn't get hurt, what ends up happening? Do the Jags hold on to the division and make the playoffs? I mean, you'd have to lean that way. Because when they beat the Texans the second time in Houston, most people thought, well, at least I thought, that the division was wrapped, that was it. But that was not the case. The Jaguars, they collapsed towards the end of the year, and they're looking to bounce back. And this is something interesting. Among Lawrence's 16 starts, his performance after each injury ranked as his 2nd, 5th, 7th, and 8th worst games of the season by total EPA. And my friend is texting me about the Knicks losing, and I'm going to have to talk to him about that because, if you're a Knicks fan, that was a rough one last night. So, anyways, back to what I was talking about with the Jaguars. So now with Travis Etienne, he received a vote for Offensive Player of the Year for the first time in his career in 2023. He had a solid season. Had over 1,000 yards rushing, 11 touchdowns. He also caught 58 passes for 476 yards and a touchdown. And one of them was against the Steelers, and that was against the Steelers, I believe. And he did miss the year he got drafted. He didn't play. He had I think it was a foot injury that kept him out the whole year. So he didn't, excuse me, he didn't even play in 2021. But, the last 2 years, he's been solid for them. And you're hoping for another big year out of him. He's going to be an important part of that Jaguars offense. So, yeah, this is, they picked up the fifth-year options of both of these guys. Trevor Lawrence, he's going to get his money at some point. You're hoping for a better season, not filled with injuries and a better touchdown to interception ratio. 14 interceptions is a little high. It's a little high. So, but I think he's the Jaguars guy moving forward. Travis Etienne, he's a running back, and the kind of offseason, the last couple of offseasons that running backs have had. Although Saquon Barkley did get paid, and you saw a lot of running backs change teams. Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, just to name a few. And Travis Etienne, I think the Jaguars are going to want to keep him too. So, he's not going to get paid Trevor Lawrence money, but I think the Jaguars, they'll work something out with him. So they're going to be big parts of this team moving forward. Now, the other thing that they did was they released wide receiver Zay Jones, and this was less than a week after drafting Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. And the release of Zay Jones results in a savings of $4.49 million against the salary cap. He signed a 3-year contract with the team in March of 2022, but they let him go, and they also released kicker Joey Slye as well. Brian Thomas Jr. Had 17 touchdown receptions in 2023. He was drafted 23 by the Jaguars. And another thing, actually, the Jaguars did is they also have Jarvis Landry will be participating in Jaguars rookie minicamp May 10th through the 11th. So he's trying to make an NFL comeback. So, and then back with Zay Jones. So he recorded 116 catches for 1,144 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2 seasons with the Jaguars, including career highs of 82 receptions and 823 yards in 2022. He missed 8 games in 2023 due to a knee injury. So, yeah, I mean, that's who they ended up, I guess he ended up being, well, you thought it was going to be, he was Ridley's replacement, Brian Thomas Jr., but they also did let go of Zay Jones. So, but I did want to take a look at their draft as a whole. So with Brian Thomas Jr. being taken at 23, 2 touchdowns in 2021, 5 touchdowns in 2022. In 2023, he was third team Associated Press All-American, second team All-SEC, led the FBS with 17 receiving touchdowns, like I said, and played in all 13 games with 12 starts. So that was their first pick, and they're expecting big things out of him, hopefully being the Calvin Ridley replacement. You still got Christian Kirk there and Evan Ingram. So, look, I mean, I think the Jaguars are going to bounce back. You know, if Trevor Lawrence is healthy, they're gonna bounce back and be the team that started off the year 8-3. Although they were still trying to find their consistency with the offense, but I think the Jaguars will bounce back. Then in the second round, they took Mason Smith, another LSU player, a defensive tackle in high school, 5-star prospect, top 20 overall nationally. We'll look at 2023. So started 12 games in 2023, 28 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. So, again, that's someone to add to the defensive line, which includes Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead, and Josh Allen, who got paid. So that helps. They took a corner in the third round, Jerian Jones out of Florida State, 5'11", 190 pounds. In 2023, honorable mention, All-ACC, played in 12 games with 9 starts, 25 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 1 was returned for a touchdown. So, and 5 tackles for loss. So, again, someone to add to the secondary. They took a tackle in the fourth round, Javon Foster out of Missouri. In 2023, third-team Associated Press All-American, first-team All-SEC, started all 13 games, team captain. So, again, you want to protect Trevor Lawrence, and, you can never go wrong with taking offensive lineman, like I said before, unless you don't nail the pick. So they took him. They took another defensive tackle, another one from LSU, Jordan Jefferson. In 2023, played in all 13 games with 6 starts, 36 tackles, 7 tackles for loss with 2.5 sacks. The fifth round, they took another corner from Mississippi, DeAndre Prince. Started all 13 games, 36 tackles, 5 tackles for loss with 1 sack and interception. They took a running back, Keelan Robinson from Texas. He had 1 start. Well, he played in all 13 games with 1 start, 3 rushing touchdowns on the year. And they took a kicker in the 6th round. Actually, there were some, not even just kickers, but punters got taken too. The Bears took which I thought was interesting. But yeah, they took the kicker from Arkansas, Cam Little. 2023 first team All-SEC kickoff specialist. So, yeah, I mean, the Jaguars had some kicking problems last year themselves. So, and yeah, I just mentioned how they got rid of Joey Slye. So, and they had McManus. Didn't they have him last year? But I guess actually let's see where McManus is. I thought McManus was on the team last year. So he is so now he's with the Commanders. Okay. But he was with the Jaguars last year. But yeah, now he's with the Commanders. So yeah, that was in the 6th round. They took a kicker, the Jaguars. They took Miles Cole, a defensive end from Texas Tech. Honorable mention, all Big 12 conference. Started 12 games, 32 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss with 3.5 sacks. So that's what the Jaguars did. You know, took some defensive guys. Brian Thomas Jr. was the big pick. Like I said, they took a tackle. So, yeah, I mean, you know, they addressed some needs. And, you know, we'll see how all these guys pan out. Like I've been saying, I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert, that I know all these players. But, again, you know, add depth on the defensive line, add some guys in the secondary, because they did lose some guys in the secondary. Because I think Darius Williams was a guy that, you know, was with them, and then he went back to the Rams. So, you know, you lost him. And I think, didn't they also lose to somebody else? Oh, I think it was Rayshon Jenkins, I believe. So he's now with the he's with the Seahawks. So they did lose him too. Safety. So that was because I kind of figured I knew he was the other player. I just wanted to double check just to make sure. But yeah, those are the Jaguars' moves. Like I said, when it comes to, you know, picking up the 5th-year options of Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, you know, is going to get paid. Travis Etienne, again, plays running back. So, you know, we'll see if the Jaguars, you know, keep him around or if they go in a different direction. But I feel like they're going to keep him too. But like I always say, we will have to wait and see on that. And like I said, Jaguars collapsed towards the end of 2023. And they're looking to try to correct that. But you got a better division now. The Texans are better. The Colts you think are going to be better. The Titans are better. Now, I still think the Titans are the last place team. But it's a very competitive division. It's not a laughing stock anymore. So, Jaguars are going to have to, you know, prove some people wrong. And we'll see if they could do that. But let me know what you guys think about what the Jaguars did. How do you view their draft? What are your thoughts on them releasing Zay Jones and picking up the options of Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne? Let me know in the comments. So, when we come back from our final break of the show, we'll take a look at the remaining free agents after the NFL draft and where they can potentially end up. Hopefully they sign soon. It gives us more to talk about. But yeah, that's what we will discuss when we come back from our final break of the show. So with that being said, for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to take a look at the top remaining free agents after the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, there's one player, is of course Tyler Boyd, who I've been talking about for weeks. And I actually, because I did see something that said a decision could be coming soon on where he's potentially going to sign. So let's see if there's any updates on that. Yeah, so this was this is from a couple days ago, and then there's one I see from a day ago. So Tyler Boyd to make free agent decisions soon, and then another one that says Tyler Boyd could sign with new team in coming days. So we're still waiting on who that potentially will be that ends up signing him. And it's like I've been campaigning for him to get signed, but I just, I thought he'd be signed. And he wants a bigger role on a team because, the Bengals with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, he was that third option. Last year, 67 receptions, 667 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, the numbers have dipped. Since 2019, the receiving yards went down, but it's just more because of, the Bengals, drafting Chase, drafting T. Higgins. And, you go back to 2019 and 2018, he had over 1,000 yards. So, again, I think he's not a number 1 option. I think he's a number 2 or a number 3, but I think he's still a solid receiver. He's 29 years old. He's not even 30 yet. Well, he's going to be 30 in November, but still, I think wherever he could end up, whether he's a 2 or a 3, I think he could be a productive receiver. Now, the potential landing spots for him, you got the Lions and the Eagles. All right, I don't think the Eagles is going to happen, but, if you had him with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, that, that's not bad. But then the Lions, that would be a good spot for him because I know I've talked about them and, how I was saying Jameson Williams, you're hoping for him to, take that next step. But if he doesn't, the Lions need another receiver. They lost Josh Reynolds, who Jared Goff knew from playing in L.A., but you lost him. They kind of need that other receiver. And Jameson Williams, hopefully he steps up, but yeah, they need another receiver. And if you can bring in Tyler Boyd, I think that's a good receiver to have to go along with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who just got paid this offseason. So we'll have to see, but that I think the Lions, that would be a good spot for him. The Steelers, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen, but maybe he signs with the Lions. So we got some other teams here, or some other players here, of course. Let's get into them. You got Justin Simmons, former Bronco, at safety. Potential landing spots for him, the Jets, the Seahawks, the Titans, and the Patriots. Now, where does he want to go to a contender? Because I don't think the Patriots are a contender. I don't think the Titans are a contender. Although you put him back there now with L'Jarius Sneed, that would help. But I look at the Seahawks. I look at the Jets. The Jets, if everything goes right, this team could be very good. With the Seahawks, they could be. I think their ceiling is playoffs, but I don't expect them to go very far. So I know the Steelers also had interest in him too. I'm talking about the Steelers a lot. Steelers have interest in everybody, but yeah, I'm curious to see where he's going to end up because he's still. I think he's probably. Among the players on the list, I think he's, up there as. I think he's like one of the biggest names left. So we'll see where he ends up. You also got Connor Williams, an offensive lineman, potential landing spots for him. The Dolphins, the Panthers, the Seahawks. Yeah, we'll see where he's currently recovering from a torn ACL. So we'll see where he could potentially end up again. Maybe if he doesn't get signed, going into next year and an offensive lineman gets hurt, he could be signed. You also got, some corners. You got Stephon Gilmore, Xavier Howard, Steven Nelson as well. Xavier Howard was released by the Dolphins. Stephon Gilmore, was playing in Dallas. Panthers are a team. Vikings, Raiders. Those are potential spots for him. For Xavier Howard, you got Houston, Indianapolis, and Minnesota. So maybe the Vikings nab one of these corners that are available. I think Xavier Howard was campaigning to go back to, or not go back, but go to Houston. And, he's a guy that's dealt with some injuries recently, so I don't know who's going to be the team that does pick him up, 2 hours ago, Colts named the best fit for free agent cornerback Xavier Howard after the NFL draft. Xavier Howard tells teams he's fully cleared for football activities. So, at some point, he's going to be signed, you would think. Yeah, there's like conflicting things. There's the Colts best fit, Vikings named top landing spot for Xavier Howard. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see, but he'll get signed, I would imagine. You got Dalton Reisner, offensive guard. Potential landing spots for him: the Buccaneers, Dolphins, Packers, and Lions. Ryan Tannehill still out there. Is he gonna get signed by somebody? I mean, I feel like as a backup maybe, but he might be one of those guys that if there's an injury, he'll get signed. But I don't know. I mean, you look at all the teams. Maybe the Giants. No, that's not going to happen. So right now you look at the teams. Cowboys, Eagles, no. Commanders, no. Giants, no. Lions, no. Packers, no. Vikings? I mean, look. I mean, I know they drafted J.J. McCarthy, but I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, who would you rather? I don't know. See, it's kind of a silly thing. Who would you rather have, Ryan Tannehill or Sam Darnold? That's where that's coming from. But yeah, Bears no. Buccaneers no. Saints no. Falcons no. Panthers no, because they got Andy Dalton as the backup. 49ers no. Rams no. Seahawks no. Cardinals no. I mean, I feel like someone's going to sign him as a backup. But I don't know. I mean, I think the potential fit was the Broncos, but, you know, they traded for Zach Wilson and, you know, they drafted Bo Nix and you got Jarrett Stidham already there. So I don't know why I don't think they're going to bring Tannehill in. Yeah, so I think what's going to end up happening is Tannehill is going to be one of those guys that could get signed, like I said, if someone ends up getting hurt. That's really what it's going to come down to. And there's really no news. Oh, rumored Packers veteran quarterback fit doesn't make a whole lot. Okay, I'm just looking at headlines here. I see from 2 days ago from Heavy.com, Raiders viewed as landing spot for former Dolphins Pro Bowl quarterback. Yeah, I mean, the Raiders could be a spot, but, you know, they got Minshew already, and you have Aiden O'Connell, so it doesn't make sense. But again, if an injury happens, Tannehill could be a guy that ends up getting signed. And then the last one here is Odell Beckham Jr. The Dolphins were supposedly pushing to sign him, but nothing's happened. Somebody's going to sign him, I think. I mean, he's not the same player he once was, but I think, you know, as like a number 3, number 4 guy, you know, I think that's kind of where he is right now. Which is unfortunate to say, because it's just, he's dealt with a lot of injuries. You know, he tore his ACL twice, you know, with the Browns, and then unfortunately he tore it again in the Super Bowl with the Rams, and he was arguably the best player on the field. You know, Cooper Kupp ended up winning those honors, but Odell looked like he was going to win Super Bowl MVP. Had a touchdown, and you know, he was on his way to having a great game, and he unfortunately got hurt in that, and the Rams didn't bring him back. He went to the Ravens and made plays here or there, but it's just he's not that same player that he was, especially with the Giants. But yeah, we'll see. Let me know what you guys think about where these guys can potentially end up. Again, now that the draft's over, teams are still going to be, you know, looking to, you know, fill some holes, and you know, some of these guys can definitely do that. You know, teams that could be thin at wide receiver and, you know, offensive lineman and cornerback. I mean, I look at my team, the Giants, they could use another corner. So, but I don't know if they are going to go after one of these veteran guys. So, but we'll just have to wait and see. But in the coming days, some of these guys will be signed. And Michael Gallup was on this list, but he got signed by the Raiders. So, you know, we'll see where these other players end up going we'll keep an eye on it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Like I said, my friend texted me as I was looking at my notes and about the Knicks loss last night. That was brutal. That was brutal. But I will say, when it comes to that, I mean, the Knicks kind of stole game 2 in the series. Sixers, stole the game last night. So they got even, basically, with that. But the Knicks should have won last night. That was a brutal, brutal loss. Don't feel confident about that. And it was funny because I set up my basement, so I had the Yankees on, I had the Islanders on, and I had the Knicks on. Now, I put the Islanders on last, being a New York fan of those teams. Mostly the Yankees. I'm a casual when it comes to the Islanders and the Knicks, but I had all of them on. I put the Islanders on last, and immediately the Islanders go down 2-0, and I turn the game off. Now, they actually ended up tying the game. It was 3-3 at one point, and then they still ended up losing and getting eliminated from the playoffs by the same team that eliminated them last year, so what are you going to do? They weren't expected to win the series, but, it stinks. But now at the Knicks, I mean, now it goes back to Philly, and, it's the pressure's on now. And then the Yankees just, again, losing to the Orioles is tough, but still got a long season to go there. So, yeah, you got a little dose of every sport there towards the end here, which is nice. But, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Just like I said, we're getting closer and closer, little by little, to the NFL season. We're in May, but you got the schedule coming out. So once that comes out, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about all the primetime games and things like that. So looking forward to it. Also, I did want to mention when I did the Travis Kelce segment yesterday, so I did say that he got a 2-year extension. So that was the initial report, but it was just more of a pay raise for his current contract. So I know on one of my shorts, Blueberry Wilbur, he commented on it and said not an extension, a pay raise. Contract is still up after 2025. He just gets more money. So I appreciate the correction on that. But yeah, I did see an article that said the initial report was that he did get a contract extension, but that is not the case. So that's my fault. I'll take accountability for that. But yeah, I just wanted to. I was going to say that when I was talking about the Chiefs to open the show, but I forgot to mention that. But like I said, that's it for the show. I know I went off on a tangent, which happens. Again, make sure to check out all the other shows. I know I brought up some stuff that's going to be discussed throughout the day. Basketball. Make sure to tune into the basketball podcast. Talk about to hear about the playoff games from last night. We got baseball in full swing. So make sure to check that out. All the other shows, we got some more shows coming out. So you'll see some more new faces in the coming days, coming weeks. So it's an exciting time. So, but yeah, so that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Finally wrapping it up here. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.